So last time we finished was Jesus' death. And the reaction. So in Matthew and Mark, the reaction, given the reaction of the Roman soldiers, centurion confessed, truly, this was the Son of God, whatever he meant by God, obviously. We don't know. The same in Mark. Truly, this man was the Son of God. And look, centurion, this man was innocent. That's his words. And interesting, all the multitude who assembled to see the sight, when they saw what had taken place, returned home beating their breasts. So probably there were different people who just assembled. It's already were, full day. So people heard about it. Their prophet was crucified. So what had to happen, it's beyond our control now, whether they're opponent or followers. Now, the aftermath. Obviously, the last scene, scenes of the Gospels, occupy very kind of small room in terms of writings, because all Gospels are very brief. But if we pay attention, each conclusion of each Gospel is radically unique. That's very interesting. Radically unique, which, gives some kind of a confusion to scholars or readers who take it as a kind of a stenographic record of the events. If we take aside theological or even philosophical implication of each conclusion. So we'll start today with the conclusion, obviously, of Matthew, which I try to outline in my outline. So let me, first of all, read for you the end of the outline, which is a part of the last 7th section, the universal enthronement of the King of the Jews through death and resurrection. So first, we start, whoever has this outline, on the page 8. So the end, the cultic and cosmic shock in Matthew, the rising of the dead saints, and confessing Jesus as the Son of God by his hangman. That's what Matthew does. Obviously, the cosmic shock, which was mentioned in Mark as well, and in Luke, is unique in Matthew, and that he is speaking about the rising of the dead, of the former righteous of the Old Testament, if you wish. Now we go to the after the death, what happened. First of all, witnessing of the event of Jesus dying, his last moments on the cross, by faithful women, which I call insightful testimony of the church, because they, it is said that those were women who followed him from Galilee. So they were followers. So in Matthew, there's no disciples are not present at all. Actually, in all synoptics, disciples are absent completely. In John, as we remember, there's only one, the beloved disciple who stood on the cross and that took the Mother of God away. And it's not even said before or after Jesus dying. Because actually, this is the same disciple witnessed that he saw how his side was pierced. So apparently, he stood there with Jesus' mother to the end. And then they departed. But we're talking about Matthew. Now, the burial of Jesus and the guarding of the tomb, which, Matthew represents as a double embassy to Pilate by a secret follower, who's Joseph, and an evident enemies, high priests. First, A, the embassy to Pilate by a disciple and a burial and the burial of Jesus' body. First, Joseph asks Pilate's permission to bury Jesus, the burial in the new tomb, and again, as a conclusion of this little subsection, the witnesses of the burial among the faithful women, those who were looking for his death, looking for his death, who just testifying his last moments, and then stayed there and watched from outside how he was buried. The second part, the embassy of Jesus' enemy by Pilate. Earthly powers, we can say here as Imperium Sacerdotum, seals the tomb of the heavenly king. This is how he presents it. First, the chief priests and Pharisees and Pilate and Pharisees ask Pilate to seal the tomb. Pilate reluctantly agrees, saying, "You have your own guards, so I wash my hands. So it's done. Whatever you said, it's done. Now you do the rest." But he agreed on that. The guards by the tomb and the seal of the earthly authority. We remember they sealed the tomb, sealed it. Custodia in Slavonic. Now the last part, B, the resurrection and the cosmic enthronement of the Davidic king. That's how Matthew presents it. First, Christ's resurrection. A, the women witness visits the tomb on the first day. So 3 mentions of the women. Witnesses. They witness Jesus' end. They witness Jesus' burial. Some of them, but anyway, they represent it, witness his resurrection. It's important things. All events were witnessed. So the evangelist underlines this particular point. All events were witnessed. How it goes also. B, angel opens the tomb and shocks the guards to faint. The angel's good news of resurrection and order for the disciples to meet Jesus in Galilee. Reason Jesus greets the women and orders them for his brothers, that means his disciples, to meet him in Galilee in their home, at home. E, the false testimony of the high priests seals the religion of Israel. Actually, Matthew is a little bit ironic. Instead of the tomb of the heavenly king of Israel. Why? How he does it. First of all, the guards report to the high priests about the event. So when they came out of the state of fainting, they came obviously trembling. So what happened? High priest meeting with the elders. So they have the council. They all decide because they share, so to say, responsibilities. They're afraid of it. And they're buying the silence and the lying of the guards. So we'll read it. Now, the false testimony of the rulers caused the unbelief among the Jews. It's interesting how Matthew explains the unbelief of the majority. So they were deceived. They were deceived that his disciples stole his body. And it's said interesting that it's still, I will read it. Now, the last, very brief, the cosmic enthronement of Jesus and the universal commission to the disciples. It's all 4 verses. The disciples meet the risen Jesus on the mountain in Galilee. Jesus conveys to them that all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me, to him. 18. The universal commission or mission in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. A disclosure of the invisible presence of King in his church, always to the end of the time. To this I can answer the question that was raised once by Sergei Schrader, whether the mention of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit was a late addition of the 4th century. After, obviously, the First Ecumenical Council, 314, that introduced, the point of the Trinity as a theological dogma. So I'm trying to respond to Sergei, but I'm responding to you. Obviously, you always preach to the choir because Sergei is not. But I checked it. It's evident that it was already present in Matthew because it's quoted by Irenaeus of Lyon a couple of times, even several times. I can even have even the quotation from Irenaeus of Lyon. He's a writer of the 2nd century. He's obviously a very influential writer because few things of substantial theological value remained from such an early period. But Irenaeus against heresies, 5 books, remained. So we are in possession of them. And there are things that he refers, what all these books, they are retell mainly gospel stories. So then the scholars find where they're taken from. Matthew, so on and so forth. And there is a direct mentioning of the Trinity. So now let's go to read it. And then we'll compare it. Okay. So let's start. Mary. You're here. So Matthew, just two words. Matthew 27, 55, 56. Not 2 words, 2 verses.
There were also many women there, looking on from afar, who had followed Jesus from Galilee, ministering to him, among whom were Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of James and Joseph, and the mother of the sons of Zebedee.
Thank you. So we already know about the mother of the sons of Zebedee from Matthew and also particularly from Mark when she made a request from Jesus for her 2 sons to sit on his right hand and on his left hand without actually knowing that these places will be occupied by 2 robbers crucified. I'm sorry for laughing, but you see, I'm not taking it out of nothing, right? It's it's irony which is present in the Gospels accounts itself when they mention the same woman who once came, you know. Uh, uh, Now, it seems that Mark gives a little bit different list of them. There were in Mark. There were also women looking on from afar. They were afraid to approach, and maybe they were not allowed. You know, it's a site of the execution. So soldiers ask, kind but what you can do, you wherever you can, you just look from outside. Among whom was again Mary Magdalene. She was and Mary, the mother of James the younger, and of the who and of Joseph, who probably Joseph, James and the Joseph, so it's the same probably Mary, and Salome, who, when he was in Galilee, followed him and ministered to him, and also many other women who came up with him to Jerusalem, which is an important glimpse that there was a followers, not of just his 12 disciples, but their mothers, some kind of women, about whom we know from different that Jesus healed them, some of them. So they were actually grateful to him, impressed. There was one mentioned, I don't remember who was a wife of the Huza, who was a minister of the court of Herod. So whom Jesus healed or expelled some, unclean spirit or something like that. So healed, she probably was kind of mentally sick or something. So, and it says that they also served him with their estate and so on and so forth. So some of them were, so it was a following. It's not just Jesus and the disciples. They were followed by and these women were present. They all agree on that. And look, and all his acquaintances and the women who had followed him from Galilee stood at a distance and saw these things. His acquaintances. So, look, it's a time of Easter. I mean, Pascha, Jesus Pascha. It's not Easter, it's Pascha, Passover. So, the time of the pilgrimage. So they had their own reason to go to Jerusalem for this particular feast, because usually it is it's a time of annual pilgrimage to Jerusalem. Those who have means and time for this. So they probably had places where to stay and so on and so forth. So it's not was just, it gives you something that Jesus was kind of taken out of their midst by this sudden night arrest in Gethsemane. They did not expect it. No one expected it, but Jesus himself, we knew always. So it's all, and now it's all happened absolutely and briskly, quickly. All right, that's what it is. That's what we read here. So any comments on this? Any questions on that? Any considerations? Okay, the next 4 verses about the burial. 27, chapter 20, verses 57, 61. Mary, if you can read it for us.
When it was evening, there came a rich man from Arimathea named Joseph, who was also a disciple of Jesus. He went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Then Pilate ordered it to be given to him. And Joseph took the body and wrapped it in a clean linen shroud and laid it in his own new tomb, which he had hewn in the rock. And he rolled a great stone to the entrance of the tomb and departed. And Mary Magdalene and the other Mary were there, sitting opposite the tomb.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now appeared Joseph of Arimathea, of whom we didn't have anything before, anything. So nothing. We didn't hear about him. All of a sudden, he jumped from nothing, from nowhere. Mark repeats the same story. And when evening had come, since it was the day of preparation, that is the day before the Sabbath, Joseph Arimathean, a respected member of the council, who was also himself looking for the kingdom of God, took courage and went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Now, what is said here about it? You know, in a couple of hours, there will be Sabbath already. Nothing can be done. Bodies are the bodies of Roman criminals. Roman criminals don't care about Sabbath, about Jesus, about Jewish ritual of burial, so on and so forth. They would have taken them and brought them, down into this kind of common grave without any burials. So the church is very, very grateful to Joseph. We sing to him all the time. It's during the liturgy. We say a prayer, every liturgy, we say a prayer to Joseph of Arimathea, because he kind of, he preserved the body of Jesus on resurrection. We have to realize that for the Jews in those days, and actually for religious Jews up to today, there's only one way to bury the body. You prepare the body and you put into the grave. No, God forbid cremation. God forbid. It's a absolutely pagan way of dealing with the human body in Jewish perspective and also Christian perspective until recently. So, who introduced cremation in the Western civilization? Russian communists. So, do it away. Why? Because we don't believe in afterlife. What body is, done. You lived your life away. Then it was picked up by Nazis for particular, as we remember, purposes. And then all of a sudden we condemned both and then accepted this as kind of universal way of dealing with the human body. No way for the Jews, because burial is the religious rite. So you prepare body and commit it to earth to wait till the general resurrection. I'm talking about a Jewish belief. I'm not talking about Christian belief. Obviously, we kind of inherited this. And actually, when I was in several times at Jewish burial, I mean, religious, I was astonished that the rite is absolutely, obviously words are different of the funeral ritual. Very brief in Hebrew, very brief. But during this brief prayer, which is actually several verses, there are 7 mentions of God of Israel who resurrects the dead. 7 mentions. Well, 6 or something, but anyway, very kind of dense percent of mentioning of the, why we burn, because of the, how it's in Hebrew. I'm not forget, but I have to look at it. Just believe me that it is there. All right. So Joseph came running to Pilate. So I'm reading you Mark. uh, who was so Joseph of Arimathea, a respected member of the council, who was also himself looking for the kingdom of God, took courage, you know, and went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. And Pilate wondered if he were already dead. And summoning the centurion, he asked him whether he was already dead. And when he learned from the centurion that he was dead, he granted the body of Jesus. And we remember how, in his account, John described this kind of checking whether he was dead or not. The centurion just pierced his sides, you know. They were breaking the legs just to be sure. Because if the legs of those who were crucified are broken, they cannot breathe and they die, even if they could. So they expired, quite a few. But because Jesus already did it, he didn't do it, but he kind of pierced his side. It's just in Matthew. I'm sorry, in John. So, why Joseph Arimatheus was kind of took courage? Why it was mentioned? First of all, he was a member of the highest Jewish council. That means he was he represents the religious power of the Jewish people. And the law forbids to bury by Jewish rites someone who was hanging on the tree. The Paul mentions that in one of his epistles. I believe even to Epistle of the Hebrews he mentions that. So Jesus became unclean by his death. To bury him as a Jew would be transgression against the law. So first of all, he was afraid because he was, so from him it was heroic act. And in one of the sources, in one of the apocryphal sources about Joseph of Arimathea, which means that it didn't enter into the gospel, it said that he was even arrested by the council later on and put into some kind of a prison for doing that. But Jesus saved him. I don't remember where it was said, but it's kind of Jesus helped him to kind of to be released and so on and so forth. Joseph of Arimathea kind of became a great thing in legends of medieval. First of all, this kind of growls, the medieval thing, but it's completely different things. So I'm not talking about it. Just mentioning it's how important Joseph became for the church because he left the body to be resurrected, to be risen. So, and he bought a linen shroud and taking him down, wrapped him in the linen shroud. So therefore, all evangelists mention these things. Look, now there was a man named Joseph from the Jewish town of Arimathea. He was a member of the council, a good and righteous man who had not consented to their purpose and deed. And he was looking for the kingdom of God. This man went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Then he took it down and wrapped it in a linen shroud. John adds Nicodemus to that. After this, Joseph of Arimathea, who was a disciple of Jesus, but secretly, for fear of the Jews, asked Pilate that he might take away the body of Jesus. And Pilate gave him leave. So he came and took away his body. Nicodemus, who had at first come to him by night, came bringing a mixture of myrrh and aloes, about 100 pounds weight. They took the body of Jesus and bound it in a linen cloth with the spices, as is the burial custom of the Jews. Now, in the place where he was crucified, there was a garden, and in the garden, a new tomb where no one had been laid. So, because of the Jewish day of preparation, as the tomb was close at hand, they laid Jesus there. When I first went to the Holy Sepulchre, I was absolutely, amazed that actually the cave of the burial, at the place of Golgotha, were about 30, 40 meters apart. They were so close. They were in the same temple. So I thought that maybe it was kind of they brought it together, symbolic sites, but actually it were real sites. They were just very close to each other. They don't look obviously like a cave now or like a Golgotha of the old, because it's a temple. But interesting. Only John introduces Nicodemus. We don't hear about him anywhere in synoptics. We don't hear about Joseph in John either. But so they appeared. So this as a secret disciples of Jesus. Apparently, John mentions in the gospel in the chapter 12 of his gospel that many of even he said even many of the rulers believed that Jesus is a Messiah, but because of the fear of the Pharisees, they were afraid to acknowledge, uh, to confess, because Pharisees already made a decision and probably moved it that those who were to accept Jesus as a Messiah will be put out of the synagogue. That means, cut of the people, cut of the community of believers. That's what it is. Excommunicated, as we would say today. Okay, so that's about the burial. Any consideration about it? Any questions? Any comments? Yeah. So also, it is and Joseph laid him in his own tomb, new tomb, which had hewn in the rock. So the rich man, he had kind of his own kind of burial place. He put it in his own tomb. There was no time to buy for Jews something, prepare everything. It was kind of so everything is logical. Uh, and departed. Mary Magdalene and the other Mary were there, sitting opposite sepulchre. So Mary Magdalene is mentioned as a person, actually, really, here, another Mary. Magdalene and the Mary, the mother of Joseph. So they call Joseph, when they mean Joseph, or Joseph, and others, Jacob the younger, they mention someone from the community of their own, that it's known people to them, because it actually the Gospels were written apparently several decades after. So those were kind of witnesses, names whom you can ask, is this your mother was there, and so on and so forth. The issue remained, about this, the testimony of the eyewitnesses. That's an important thing. And all four Gospels, they take this importance into their consideration. Okay. And he laid him in Luke, and he laid him in a rock-hewn tomb where no one had ever been laid. It was a day of preparation, and the Sabbath was beginning. They all repeated. So just in the last moment before the Sabbath started, he just put and went away. And as we remember from what we read, it was a great Sabbath. It was a Sabbath of the Passover week. So, uh, in a theocratic setting, so it was dangerous to. We know what the main accusation against Jesus, that he was breaking, he consistently was breaking the Sabbath. So Joseph did it just in the last moment. He and Nicodemus, as members of the high council. So, all right. The woman who had come with him from Galilee followed. It's a look and saw the tomb and how his body was laid. So though uh, uh, Matthew and Mark mention two or three of them by name, they all agree that there were quite a few who came and stood there until the very end. Uh, and and then they returned and prepared spices and ointment. On the Sabbath day, they rested according to the commandment, but they couldn't do anything on the Sabbath. That's right before. So this explanation about Marbur's, we all read these things and during the Marbur's. Now the resurrection start. Okay. Wait. 28. The guard of the tomb, the guarding of the tomb, which I mentioned, it is only in Matthew. No one of evangelists kind of reports these things. But Matthew, that's his message. He writes mainly to, it's also interesting how each of the evangelists kind of build their stories, whom they address. Matthew's audience in Palestine, it's primarily to Jewish community, Jewish Christian believers, or just, so you have to remember how things were in those days to realize what actually happened. And that's why he brings this testimony. It is 27, 62, 66. Mary, can you read it for us?
Next day, that is, after the day of preparation, the chief priests and the Pharisees gathered before Pilate and said, "Sir, we remember how the impostor said, while he was still alive, 'After 3 days I will rise again.' Therefore, order the tomb to be made secure until the third day, lest his disciples go and steal him away and tell the people, 'He is risen from the dead.' And the last fraud will be worse than the first." Pilate said to them, "You have a guard of soldiers. Go, make it as secure as you can." So they went and made the tomb secure by sealing the stone and setting a guard.
Now, where it took place on Sabbath, the next day of the preparation. It was a day of preparation when Jesus was. Preparation of what? Preparation of Passover, sacrifice. Now, obviously, Joseph and Nicodemus, they were in haste to do it before Sabbath. But actually, the high priests and Pharisees, they simply broke the Sabbath. And the next day of preparations, there was only one, Friday, right? Saturday. On Sunday, he is risen. Saturday. Pilate doesn't keep the Sabbath, obviously, but they're supposed to do it. So they came with Pharisees. So it's an embassy. So embassies that decided, forget about this Sabbath, forget about these things. We need to do it. First of all, they made something which forbidden completely. They enter to the unclean place of the Roman authority, which Jews are not allowed to do by his own will. And particularly they did it on Sabbath, and they did it on a great Sabbath. So, about the breaking of the law. So, and they asked. So we can imagine this situation. Now they know how, okay, obviously they have their own spies. They say, hey, this was Joseph who did it. Otherwise he will be thrown into this kind of, common grave. We won't have trouble with it. Now he put it into his tomb, and he now put, but we have to guard it. If something happens, and then they will say, they were sincere in their fear, because, they were well aware of Jesus' words to his disciples that he will raise on the third day and so on and so forth. That, obviously they didn't believe it. Who would? Disciples themselves didn't believe it. They all ran away. So, but they were expecting some kind of magic tricks, So they believe that, Jesus is working the crowd very, very successfully and skillfully. He works the crowd. And so we're afraid of him, even after his death. Not of him, of his disciples, something. So it was paranoid, obviously. But, paranoia takes place around us, even today, on a wide scale. So we shouldn't be too judgmental towards a mental state. But anyway, they went there and asked Pilate, and Pilate said, all right. Said, you have a guard of soldiers. Go take it secure as you can. So I wash my hands. I did my, I'm not going to occupy Roman soldiers with this nonsense. He was already dead. That's it. If you want to, if you have your superstitions, live according to your superstitions. It's your business. You have your guard, temple guard, kind of temple police. We don't know the size of it, but it was enough to me. So they went. So they went and made the sepulchre secure by sealing the stone and setting a guard. So I remember my mother's apartment was sealed by the police. They kind of, that, no one was allowed to enter it, even myself, and I called them for help but anyway, I remember the seal. They cross it and they put the seal. So you have to enter it only by breaking the seal. The same they did with this tomb. Same they did with this tomb. So, and that's exactly what happened during Sabbath. So, yes.
What is the seal? Is it like a cloth or wax? Or?
Seals, they have various forms, but you kind of, you put it there, you just, seal, so to say, seals two sides. So if you open it, it's broken. You cannot restore this, the integrity of the seal. So we don't know, otherwise you can take the stone, take the body and put it back and so on and so forth, and then say, look, go there. The grave is empty. It's kind of, the stone is here and there's no one there. How can you explain it? That he is risen. That's exactly what happened. Because it's, then on Sunday it was empty when they came. Some saw angels, but we'll read to it. But
Brother Michael, I think Jennifer's question was iconographic. She wanted to imagine it visually.
no, I can't tell you. I haven't seen this seal. So, but I haven't seen this seal. But it said here in Matthew.
I think, excuse me, can I say something? I think the seal was actually the stone.
No.
So that they could, the stone was in place as a seal.
No, Natasha, you are
That's
wrong.
not true?
No,
okay, all right.
No.
I had always thought that.
No.
All righty.
Because it was
Nicodemus.
No, it was a big stone. It was a big,
yeah.
Thank you for asking. It was a big stone. And as we'll read further on, it was impossible for them to take it away because, probably, strong men and several of them needed just to put this stone there. No, you sealed the stone against the edge of, to be sure that no one took it away and then put it back. That's what it is, seal.
I don't understand why it's different from what I said.
You said that that stone
the stone was actually the seal. It was the seal.
No, stone is just a door.
Oh, okay. And all right. Well, I thought because it was so heavy and anybody could see that it was open, then that it was actually the seal.
No, the same thing happened before in description of John when they came to the tomb of the Lazarus. There was a stone against the tomb. So
I see. Okay.
They
could remove that easily. Yeah.
First of all, because as everyone in our cemeteries, we preserve graves from desacralization. And if there is a rich man who were buried, they sometimes pour some, take this breaking into Pharaoh's pyramids, the tombs, and so on and so forth. So we don't, but it's normal. You seal the dead body, and that's all. But they wanted to be sure that this is not going to be opened by his followers for the reason of deception. That's how they kind of present the whole story in Matthew, which is important.
I have a question, Father Michael.
Yeah.
I'm a little confused about the guard, where he says, Pilate says, go take your temple guard and put a guard. Now, weren't the guards Roman?
No, they were Jews.
Now, who were the guards who guarded Christ's tomb? Romans or Jews?
No. You have their own guards. I mean, you have the guards that were employed by the temple guard. They may take not necessarily Jews there because they put it on for Saturday. They make kind of a Shabbos.
Because first of all the iconography that exists that I've ever seen has Roman guards around Christ's tomb.
It's Western iconography later on, because they put there just.
Dr. Michael, I understand Peter's question because they could be temple guards but mercenaries. So the iconography may have some background behind itself. If you don't know for sure, why answer?
Well, because I remember I have the sermons of Metropolitan Filaret Voznесensky from the Orthodox Church abroad, who said that there was an accusation made that the Roman guards who guarded Christ's tomb were bribed to say that Jesus rose from the dead, and that's why they let this happen, that it was beyond their power. But he said this was absolutely ridiculous because a Roman guard would instantly be executed for dereliction of duty if something that they were guarding, they didn't fulfill their task of guarding the tomb, so they would be executed by their superiors. So that there was no way that the Roman guards could have faked the resurrection or been bribed to say that there was a resurrection. That they could only have been overpowered, or it is beyond their human powers to prevent the resurrection. So the assumption is that these were Roman guards.
No, you know what? Let's say whoever said Filaret or whoever painters, we have only one testimony about it, and this testimony belongs to Matthew. And what we're reading this particular testimony of Matthew. That's all I'm doing.
And Michael, I found
wait a second, Olchka, I didn't finish. As soon as I finish, you'll have the floor. So what is said here? It is said here that, okay, let's reread it.
You have a word.
Therefore, order, that's us, they ask Pilate to do it at his order, by his order. Therefore, order the sepulchre to be made secure until the third day, lest his disciples go and steal him away and tell the people he has risen from the dead, and the last fraud will be worse than the first. Now, only one sentence we have here, only one sentence. Pilate said to them, you have guard. Now, yeah, you have guard of soldiers. Go, make it as secure as you can. So they went and made the sepulchre secure by the sealing the stone and setting a guard. So probably they had their own guards. I doubt it that it were official Roman soldiers, because Roman soldiers would not be, I have no idea, actually, but it is doubtful because they were military men, that's all. They were under one commanders, but they may have their own guards who may kind of have some, whatever, we're not responsible to explain how things were kind of pictured 10, 12 centuries later by painters, you see. If you can ask, they were in Roman soldiers. But look at the Bruegel, Peter's Bruegel Nativity, or Numbering at Bethlehem. They're all dressed as, as kind of Dutch of the 16th century. So we cannot judge about, this kind of things. That's what they could say. But it's definitely their guard. And later, when we come to this issue of the guards, because after the first earthquake, Matthew continues, if you wish, while they were going. But first of all, let's read the scene of resurrection. Matthew 28:1-8. Mary.
Now, after the
Brother Michael, I'm sorry.
Yes.
You haven't considered what I said, and you have dismissed Peter's question. Please look in the chat.
Okay. Yeah, they're kind of, Olga sent some kind of links.
I didn't send some kind of, I sent a description that's very dialectical. It considers both sides. And do some research before you answer questions, or just say plainly, that is my opinion. That is what seems to me to follow from the Gospels. Don't dismiss
Okay,
people's
that's
questions.
just a second. Sorry. All right. Okay. Okay, Peter, I answer what I can answer. I don't know how they were dressed, but that's what is written there. Okay, if you have more information on the issue, please share it with us. It's kind of
I did. Please look.
Olga, I cannot write open right now. This could you explain what you found out in your plain
I
words?
think your listeners can, because it's very easily openable. Just press on the link and you
All
look.
right. I can do it right now. If you want, please do it on your own or just right now, and then kind of share with us this information.
Just
Please, if you did,
for what they were.
do.
It has several opinions with different data, and it answers Peter's question to the extent other people have considered it.
Okay, could you tell us about it?
No, I can't, because it has several opinions and it's important to read it.
Okay, so read it if you want to. You found it, read it.
Were the guards at Jesus' tomb Roman soldiers or temple guards? They say that the common assumption, which is wrong or wrong outright, in other words, as the basic one, is that they were Romans. And then it says reasons to think they were maybe Romans and reasons to think they may be temple guards. And there are different sources cited for it. It's a pretty extensive answer, showing both how they might have looked and what the Gospels, different sources in the Gospels themselves say about it, including apocryphal versus canonical. And then there is some part of the discussion where they say, what do you think? This is not uncertain. I'm keen to hear your thoughts on the matter. Then different people participate in it. It's a whole forum dedicated to this question. I cannot read it all to you.
All right. So let's kind of leave it for the next time. You can.
Yeah, and I left the link for every participant here, so you're not alone, and you're not obliged to answer this question alone.
Okay. Okay. Let's go on then. Or we may leave the story of resurrection for the next time, because it's long. If we compare, I don't want to kind of, but I just want you to read one thing, particularly in Matthew, the report of the guard, because it is pertaining to our discussion right now, and it is Mary 28, 11, 15. It's also only in the Matthew. There's nothing in other Gospels.
While they were going, behold, some of the guard went into the city and told the chief priests all that had taken place. And when they had assembled with the elders and taken counsel, they gave a sum of money to the soldiers and said, tell people, his disciples came by night and stole him away while we were asleep. And if this comes to the governor's ears, we will satisfy him and keep you out of trouble. So they took the money and did as they were directed. And this story has been spread among the Jews to this day.
Okay, so it's given to all of us for consideration. Whoever these guards were, but they didn't report to Pilate. True.
Roman guards wouldn't have gone to the Jewish authorities. Why would they?
They wouldn't.
They wouldn't.
No.
I think we have this mental picture of them dressed up in all these armor from Renaissance paintings.
Besides, they wore the same armor as everybody else.
Yes, it does. It's very, very good point. Yeah, you don't think. Yeah.
But it says so clearly. Pilate says to them, you have a watch, go and set this watch. He said, you have it, go and do it. They're not Roman, they're whoever these guard the watch is.
Yeah.
They may be some hired soldiers, maybe not Jews, but they are temple guard.
Yeah, that's why they kind of they reported everything. They reported earthquake, but we'll read it next time. Look, it's already kind of it's already in 1 hour. We'll do it. So let's leave the resurrection story for the next time. But it's interesting what we read, and we'll repeat it. That's because it's only in Matthew, and it's very important how he describes this. The deceptive things, it's much easier to really to believe that someone stole the body than to believe in the resurrection. Agree, you know. So and then we shall see that Jesus didn't appear to anyone. He just appeared to those who were faithful to him. And that's interesting, not even to the disciples first, but to these women who were faithful witness, first of all, his crucifixion, who were witnesses to his burial, and who was the same one who came actually to the tomb to perform the kind of last rites to his already dead body. That's to him that he appeared in person. Only then he appeared on the first day to the 12 and was, so the first word. And then Paul said that Jesus appeared first to kind of, he appeared to Jacob, he appeared to his brother of the Lord. He appeared to John, to the 12. He appeared to more than 12,500 brothers. And then he appeared to me as an outcast. So he was appearing to those, and he mentions this kind of apparently appearance when, when he was on his trip and commission of destroying this early communities of believers. So Jesus appeared to only to those who kind of were prepared to accept him. For the majority, the story probably was quite satisfactory. Yes. But anyway, we'll discuss this also when we'll talk about the resurrection stories. And for today, thank you. I thank you for Peter, your question, and Olga's contribution, which is important, obviously, because, you may, what scholars do, they collect everything. And most of the things, besides Gospels, is a later apocryphal stories. And there are many. They might be as late as 5th, 6th century, as early as the end of the 2nd century. And obviously, and out of that, you weave your own stories, and definitely that became the foundation of the pictorial representation. But as Richard very pointed out, the arms were the same. And but I simply don't know.
Okay. Interesting. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.